Hello again and welcome back, and I hope your gardening is going well. We're now into the sort of middle end of October, and we haven't really had a cold night here yet, so the bedding plants are still surviving and looking okay. I'm very reluctant to go and pull them all up. I thought in this little video I'd show you a few of the bulbs I'm going to be setting, and later on I'll show you how my seed grown polyanthus and pansies and wallflowers are doing, and hopefully I think next week I'm just going to bite the bullet and pull my annual summer bedding up and get on with the winter and spring bedding. It's just a question of at some point in time you have to do this. I at last received my bulbs that I shall be setting alongside my winter and spring bedding. Apparently this year there has been quite difficulty in the supply of spring bulbs, hasn't there, in everything, and without making any issues about this. I think the reason it's nothing to do with Brexit or anything like that, or even with the haulage situation. The reason that bulbs have been shipped later than probably normal to this country is, I don't know whether you remembered, earlier on in the year and early on in the part of the summer there were some really bad floods in the Netherlands and Belgium and sort of the Netherlands side of Germany up there, and I think that affected various bulb growers where some of these bulbs come from. So that's the reason, but it's not too late. I know some people like to set their daffodils in as early as September. I never do that. For me, I set virtually all my bulbs the very end of October or even into November, and even don't worry if you go into December, they still will. They might be a little a week or so later in the spring, but they'll catch up, believe me. It's not that great an issue. This time of year it's more about finding good weather to get out and set them, or prepare the ground to set them. But I'm not going to make a huge great list. I'll just run through a few of my favourite bulbs what I've got here. And the first thing I really like for my tubs, and even in little sheltered corners of beds, is the small decorative iris reticulata, and I'll put some pictures up. So this is our iris reticulata. You get these in all colours. I tend to like the dark blues and some of the light blues, and I've got there's some of the bulbs. They're all in packets. We might have a look at this. I might do a video of me setting a tub up, and I like them in tubs. The one thing I will say about the iris in the tubs and in the garden, if you get a relatively mild spring and a few warm sunny days, sadly the flowers don't last long, but they do come up quickly in spring, and they come into flower, and I've had the iris reticulata in flower in February, and they're really cheery then. It's often dull cold weather. So I've got a good mix of tulip bulbs. Tulip bulbs don't seem to keep in our soil. They sort of flower one good year. You get one good year out of them, and what I normally do is dig them up from the front garden and try and set them in the back garden in a lesser location, and if they flower, great. If they don't, well, it doesn't matter. So I've got a good range of different sorts of tulips, some like mid-season tulips, and I've got I think a collection of late flowering tulips that go right on into the middle end of May, which is really good because there's not a lot in flower. You're waiting for the summer bedding to come, but you daren't set that out, and it's not fully grown, and so the garden tends to go a bit sort of dull. So I like late flowering tulips. I've got quite a few daffodils, and there again one or two named varieties, and a variety called King Alfred, which is a bright, big, bold yellow trumpet daffodil, does really well in our garden. and I also have got quite a few. I don't think I've got them to hand here, but the smaller daffodils, which I also set in tubs, the miniature daffodils about that tall, 6, 7, 8 inches, tete-a-tete, they do really well in tubs. And if you set them with a few polyanthus and a few pansies, they look absolutely lovely, because they do last a long time, particularly if the weather's quite cool. You can get perhaps 2 weeks or even 3 weeks flowering out of those, so I think they're really good value, and certainly worth looking if you've got a small garden and you want some bulbs in tubs. The Iris reticulata and the Narcissi or daffodil tete-a-tete, two really good old standard, that won't let you down. They kind of like this peat-free compost. And I've also got a few hyacinth bulbs. I also like putting hyacinths in tubs because they have the wonderful perfume, particularly if you put the tubs in a sunny position, and on an early spring day, if they get the sun, the perfume is wonderful. I also set hyacinths, in clumps, in sort of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. I think you should set things in 3s, 5s and 7s, shouldn't you, ideally? So if you set a group of hyacinths in a border, they do look quite spectacular. There again, in our garden, they tend to hold up quite well, even though this is quite a windy spot. I don't put them in bowls inside. I used to do that, but I like them natural and like them to see them flowering in the garden. So obviously, there again, I'll put the varieties that I've got. I think I've just got a mixed variety of hyacinths, and I've got some crocus. I love crocus. Obviously, there again, very much like the snowdrops, one of the first bulbs that'll come out. This year I had crocus out in middle of February. I know really they're supposed to be in March, but crocus really do well here, and crocus actually will multiply in my soil, which is an added bonus. They'll kind of seed or grow little bulblets, and if you don't disturb them. Unfortunately, with summer bedding, where I set a lot of annuals out, I often lift the bulbs up. Obviously in the late spring, when the bulbs are finished, I dig them up and then dry them off in the greenhouse, and all the bulbs from the front garden that I had last year will come, and I'll reset them in the back garden, in lesser spots, and most of them do quite well the second year, and that's a way of getting as much value for money, because let's be honest, plants and bulbs are not cheap these days. So as I say, I've got a good mix there of tulips, daffodils, iris, crocus, hyacinths. Don't think there's a lot else there. I think I've got some bigger Dutch iris that flower later on in the season, sort of around about May time, which probably about well over a foot and a half. There's some iris like that, and I certainly think, even if you've got a very small garden or you garden in containers, bulbs are fantastic, because basically you can set them any time from now onwards. Some people might think it's a bit late, but I certainly don't. And then basically you can just forget about them, and they come up and do the thing, and give you a really good colourful show in the spring, and give you that real lift to see a bit of colour come back into your garden after what can be a sort of bleak, cold time over the certainly the months of December, January and February. So there we go. What I shall probably do is I'll do a little video of me doing 1 or 2 tubs and showing you a bit closer the bulbs that I'm going to set in the tubs, but that's just an outline of what I hope, and what I've got here to set, I should say. So I thought I'd just show you a little bit of an update how quickly plants, even this time of year, mind you, having said that, here in the UK this autumn we've not had that many cold days and nights, but this is my I did show you this a few weeks ago. my pansies and polyanthus, all grown from seed, and some wallflowers. I don't usually grow wallflowers, but I found some very old packets of seeds that I'd had many years. Probably not the most conventional way of growing wallflowers, because ideally wallflowers you want, if you've got like a vegetable garden, and the ideal way there is to make like a seed bed and sow them outdoors, and then kind of thin them out a bit like you do vegetables, and let them grow on, and then lift them up when you're ready to set them and transfer them on into the garden. But I've done it a little bit differently. I've grown them in seed trays, then put them into compost and grown them on in seed trays, and I shall just set them out like that and see how they do. Always best to remember, wallflowers are a distant relative of the brassica family, would you believe, and if your soil suffers from clubroot, wallflowers can also get clubroot and spread clubroot. So something to bear in mind. It's a disease that Brussels, cauliflowers and cabbage can get clubroot. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how things have come on. They look really well, the polyanthus and the pansies. I do nip the first off the pansies. Some of them are coming into flower now. I tend to take the first few flowers off while they're still in the seed trays, and once I've set them out, I should just let them go and do their own thing, and if they flower this time of year, that's fine. Still got a few chrysanths over this side. I didn't do a lot of disbudding this year because I like the spray ones, purely grown really for inside decorative flowers, and they're getting a bit scrabby now, the last of the ones, and so yeah, I should be planting this out along with my bulbs in the next few weeks anyway. Thanks for watching. Please do like, please do subscribe if you so wish. Don't have to, but it really does benefit a small YouTube channel, so thank you to all the new subscribers out there, and we shall be back with some more gardening videos very shortly, and until then, good gardening.